All right, guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews. Coming to you guys with a review for HBO's new show, of course, House of the Dragon, the series premiere. So this is season 1, episode 1, and I'm joined by my friend Greg for this one.
Hey, how's it going?
And he's been on the channel a few times, not any time recently, I don't think. But I thought I would bring him on because he knows, and he's kind of I guess, a fan or
Yep.
really interested in a lot of the Game of Thrones lore, and he's read the books and that kind of thing. And of course, I've watched Game of Thrones, but I'm not as well versed in all that stuff. So I thought it'd be kind of a cool combination to have. My kind of me kind of maybe approaching it from a more objective, critical standpoint than and then his perspective as well. So yeah, so for this episode, obviously this one, long time in the making. I know you said you've been watching this for, is it 2 years almost?
Yeah, I think it was announced about 2 years ago, or I'm not maybe like 2 years ago in the winter, maybe like winter of 2020 or something like that. I'm not
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure when, but we've known about it for quite a while.
yeah. And this is the, well, and there was another spinoff too that was already, they filmed a pilot for that, is right with
Yeah, the Naomi Watts,
right,
the
yeah, yeah.
the long night show that they were gonna do and then canceled it after they shot a pilot.
Yeah. Yeah. So this I was this the second or third show after that they had, or like
This was
spin-off.
yeah, this would have been like the second spin-off after
Okay.
Thrones
Okay. Yeah.
that was heavy in development.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting, and it's finally here. So yeah, I know a lot of people obviously looking forward to this, and some people, of course, are maybe kind of more cautiously optimistic after the ending of Game of Thrones. But of course, Benioff and Weiss are nowhere near this spinoff. So
Thank God.
yeah, so people are more confident, I guess. But anyways, so before we share our thoughts on this, I thought if you could give maybe just a synopsis of the episode of what we saw here, and then we'll go more into some more details, and we'll give a spoiler warning when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, basically the series takes place about 200 years before the beginning of Game of Thrones. So it's about Game of Thrones starts in like the year 298, and in like George Martin's world, that is. And then this show starts. The first scene we get is in 101, so about 200 years before. And in this world, the Targaryens are rule Westeros as they did prior to Game of the show Game of Thrones for over 200 years, and it's kind of the height of their power, very wealthy, and they also have dragons. They have several dragons and several members of their family as well. In Game of Thrones, you basically get Daenerys, you get her brother Viserys for about half the first season,
Yeah.
and you get obviously Maester Aemon as well, but he's not, he's basically given up his house and everything, and he just works the watch. And then obviously you get Jon as well, but he's not aware of his heritage until later in the show.
Right.
So yeah, you get a ton of Targaryens in the show. We open first scene. We're at this great council to select the next heir, who will be the next monarch of Westeros. And the old king Jaehaerys is a few years away from dying. He's quite old, ruled for like 50 or so years over peace, prosperity in the country. And then at the Great Council, a bunch of different claims, but the two main ones are his granddaughter and grandson, Rhaenys and Viserys. And then Viserys is chosen as he's the eldest male grandson. And so he's chosen. And then we fast forward about 9 years to where we pick up in the timeline where the show, about half the first season, I think, will take place in this timeline. Then the other half will take place 10 or so years from that point, I believe. But anyway, where we pick up, Viserys has been king for about 10 years. He has a daughter, Rhaenyra, who's probably about 12, 13, 14, young teen probably.
Yep.
And basically, the first episode where Viserys' wife is very pregnant, going into labor probably at any moment, really, and so they're planning a tournament for the birth of his son. Like there was a tournament for Ned Stark in season 1 of Game of Thrones. They do tournaments for basically any event in this world that they can make an excuse to have a tournament for.
Yep.
But in this case, it would be for the birth of the next king, if he has a son, which he is pretty confident that he will have. So we kind of see this planning of this tourney, and then we see the jousting, which I thought was actually quite good. I thought it was really entertaining, especially in contrast where I thought the jousting was kind of boring. I thought the jousting scene was really good. Anyway, so we get that, and then we kind of get this scene with the joust that's kind of intercut with the labor scene, the birth scene with Viserys' wife, the queen. So we get that kind of cut, those two scenes cut together. And then also his younger brother Daemon, who's quite troublesome, like is clearly being positioned as a potential villain. Obviously it's more nuanced than that, but he's definitely kind of a rogue character. So he comes to the Red Keep. He kind of talks with his niece Rhaenyra. He buys her this, or he gives her this necklace. And then he's also given control of the City Watch, the Gold Cloaks, which obviously we know from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
But he coins the term Gold Cloaks. So he creates the gold. There's the City Watch before he controls them, but they're not called the Gold Cloaks. He coins that term. So we see them, this very kind of violent scene where they arrest and then dole out punishments to different criminals like thieves and rapers and murderers.
Yeah.
And we see this quite violent scene where this happens. And then by the end, kind of the end of the episode, where there's do you want me to get into spoilers here, or are we kind of good with that?
Maybe, I think maybe that's good. Yeah, that's good. And
okay.
We'll get into that as in a little bit, but that's good. Kept it somewhat vague. I liked it. So I guess let's just start off then. With all that in mind, what were your overall thoughts, just kind of briefly, of this episode, and maybe include more of like how it lines up to the material that you've read and that about, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was. It looks really beautiful. Clearly, the budget. I think the budget for the season is about $200 million. So it shows. I think it definitely shows. The CGI is really good. But even just, a lot of the camera work and things of that nature is clearly very expensive. A lot of these shots, especially the jousting scene, I think would have cost quite a bit to shoot. But yeah, I thought it was really good setup. As someone who knows the story and the characters, I tried to look at it through a lens of if I didn't, and is it hard to keep track, and what are the introductions of these characters like? And I think, probably it could have been done maybe a little bit better introducing characters. We kind of are thrown into a small council meeting, say each other's names, but, we don't really get any background on a lot of these characters. We just kind of get Lord Corlys or Lord Strong. We don't really get, as an example, in Game of Thrones, when they're kind of introducing the Lannisters, it's through the lens of Arya. So...
right.
Either describe, this is the king's brother, this is the king's wife, where's the imp, all this stuff. So we kind of get that introduction to the characters in a more explanatory way. Whereas here it's kind of just like, okay, this is this character, this is that character, based on this kind of conversation that we're thrown into. But I still, I think I thought the small council scenes were really good. The jousting scene I really liked. The labor scene with Viserys' wife was pretty hard to watch, really. Pretty difficult to watch. that very emotional, but also just kind of, uh, you know, visually, like that was, very kind of disturbing actually. But a lot of emotional weight on with that scene. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a few dragon flying scenes that were good. I
Oh
thought
yeah.
not a ton, not a ton. The
No.
one of the opening scenes, I think the second scene of the episode is basically Rhaenyra flying in
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
her dragon Cyrax and then landing in the dragon pit, which the dragon pit in Game of Thrones is obviously not functional, but we do see it in season 7, I think. Um,
Yeah.
but it's obviously not where it is in this show, as it's a fully functional, uh, you know, house for the dragons. So yeah, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was good. Sets the stage. At the end of the episode, we kind of understand that it's going to be kind of a succession, a battle for the succession of the throne. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it looks good to me. And then
Okay.
yeah, I mean, compared to the material, the book material, there's a few changes. Like Alicent, who is the Hand of the King's daughter,
Yeah.
is like Rhaenyra's best friend. Rhaenyra being the princess, the daughter of the king. Their best friends are obviously about the same age. In the book material, she's about 10 years older, and they don't really have that type of relationship. Their relationship is more kind of passing. She becomes her stepmother, and then that's their relationship. They don't really have any prior relationship, or anything like that. But yeah, so I think it makes more sense to have them be the same age. But yeah, that's one big difference. Other than that, I don't think there's a ton that deviate.
All right. Yeah. So, in terms of my thoughts, again, not knowing as much about that kind of stuff, I thought it worked really well as an introductory episode to the story. It felt like to me like I know that the first bit of the episode was, I guess, like basically a prologue, right?
Yeah.
But to me, this almost the entire episode felt like a prologue of sorts to the actual story that's going to play out. Now, I thought that like maybe toward like probably the first half of the episode, I thought, okay, it looks like we're not gonna see like these characters again in this timeline. But then as the episode went on, I thought, okay, but it might just be kind of like this parallel. So what you said, like half of the first season is going to be this kind of timeline, which makes sense. But I thought just from the kind of overall thought, I thought it was more of a prologue to the story that's going to set up. And I didn't think at the end of this episode, particularly, I just didn't see that there was any like immediate events that were going to happen, right after it. So I think that kind of also right backed up that idea that it's like kind of okay, this is kind of a prologue, kind of introduction, and then maybe might skip ahead some time. And then get into the kind of battle of the succession, because at the end of this episode, I guess not gonna spoil too much yet, but the two kind of people that are vying for that, vying for the throne at that point, are kind of on different paths, I would say, and they're not really in competition, like in direct competition, I would say, at the end of the episode. So yeah, it felt like kind of a good prologue to things, and yeah, I thought the introduction to all the characters was fine for me because I'm not really familiar with any of their backgrounds, so I found that fine. And I think as the season goes on, we'll get more of that anyways, and they'll probably devote some time to developing some of the background. Just to some of those characters. I wouldn't have minded as well, though, in this episode if they had more background on the Targaryens, even. With them being such the focal point of it. Maybe I would have liked... Now, and that's hard to do because, I'm not a fan of just exposition of, like, Viserys explaining the history or something like that. So I'm not sure how you would do it where it feels organic, but... that would have been maybe a little bit better if you just got a little bit more on that. like, because I asked you before this too, is like, Viserys is Daenerys' brother in Game of Thrones, of course, has the same name
Hmm.
as this King Viserys. So just like things like that, maybe like explaining the lineage a little bit more. But again, I'm sure that they'll do that as the season goes on as well. When you need to know those things, they'll probably give it to you. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was pretty impressed. I wasn't blown away, but I didn't really expect to be either. I mean, this isn't a battle episode of Game of Thrones. Like, this is just it's a first episode, and I was
Yeah.
I was thinking back to comparing. I think that the true comparison is like comparing this to the Game of Thrones premiere, right? That's what I was trying to do when I kind of gauged my overall thoughts, and I thought this was great in comparison to the premiere of Game of Thrones. Maybe a little less kind of mystery, because there was a lot of like that mystery with the White Walkers and the winter is coming, I would say, right,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. And
premiere.
I mean, at the end of the first episode of Game of Thrones is when Bran is thrown from the tower.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you kind of compare the two shows,
It's true.
kind of where they leave off, they both set up the show. Obviously Bran being thrown from the tower, basically inciting incident for the War of the Five Kings. In some ways, obviously that puts Bran in a coma. Eventually, Bran they have the cat's paw who tries to kill Bran, and then that kind of starts everything. So that the both episodes, both first episodes here at the end kind of set the show in motion. Rhaenyra, or I don't know if you want to get into what happens at the end of the episode now, but both shows do very much kind of set up the show in motion at the end of the first episode, one scene.
Yep. 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 So yeah, I thought compared to that, I thought it was pretty great, and I'd say it kind of met my expectations. It didn't really exceed them, but yeah, I'd say my expectations were met. So yeah, I guess with all that discussion, I guess we'll just this like spoiler warning now and like get into some more of the details. Um, so yeah, I guess I just have like some notes here of the things I wanted to touch on or things that kind of came to mind while I was watching it. So one of the first things I wanted to touch on is the dragons. And I think you and I talked about this in the lead up to this series is, how often were they going to feature the dragons? Because, let's be honest, right? Like watching Game of Thrones, a lot of people loved seeing the dragons on screen, and it from that point of view. But then I think there's also, the camp that wants to see them, kind of integrated in a way that makes sense. Right, and not just kind of this like fan service, I guess, of things and putting the dragons in there. And in that way, I thought they did a great job in this episode. I will say, I thought it was a bit of kind of sparing use of
Yeah.
dragons. And to me, this kind of conveyed the importance of the dragons to the Targaryen like family and their rule, without it just being kind of like a spectacle. Except maybe for the first scene where Rhaenyra
Yeah.
is riding the dragon, right? But I really loved the scene where, she says Dracarys, and it's the dragon who then, burns,
Yeah.
the queen and the, I guess, the stillborn child, or the baby.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool to just see, because there's no other family in Westeros that, has a dragon to just to do that kind
Hmm.
of thing. And it like kind of shows how much the dragons are like intertwined in their family. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what did you think of the use of dragons in this episode?
Yeah. I thought it was good. I think, yeah, basically you get the second scene, which is Rhaenyra flying in on the dragon. You get a scene, obviously the funeral scene with
Yep.
Cyrax, and then you get a scene at the end of the episode with Daemon, the king's brother, Prince Daemon, and his dragon Craxes. But that's it, basically. I think I don't think there's any other
Yep.
scenes with dragons except for a dragon skull, Balerion.
Yeah.
But no other live dragons. And I think that makes sense. I mean, it would have kind of felt out of place otherwise. We don't need them flying on dragons just for the sake of them flying on dragons, which is kind of what they did in season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was kind of touching on. Yeah.
I mean, the opening scene, there, at least for the opening scene, you can make the argument, well, they want to set the scene, to open, they want to set the scene with this dragon and her flying in on it. And then they obviously kind of have the credits roll over it and the music. So I think it's fair game there. If that scene was in the middle of the episode, I think that would seem a little bit more out of place. But I think that's fine where they use it. And then they want to show it off. They want to bring people in who don't know anything about the show and show them, okay, yeah, there are some dragons here,
Right.
clearly. And so I think there are some people who didn't like that as much. I liked it. I thought it was a tasteful use of the dragon. And then basically outside of that opening scene, which is a bit of an extended sequence of her flying through King's Landing, and then landing in the dragon pit. Other than that, it's very much not that prevalent. Like there's no battle sequences or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I thought it's good.
Yeah, and they look great. I think that all the dragons looked really great, and I loved Damon's dragon at the end. The design for that is just so cool, and it being red. I really liked how and you mentioned to me as well, right, that they're trying to make the dragons stand out from one another, right? You mentioned that.
Yeah, I think that's a big point of focus for them. In terms of colors, in terms of sizes, in terms of even just like Damon's dragon has a very long neck, almost more akin to like a snake or something, and Rhaenyra's dragon is more kind of traditional looking. There'll be other dragons that have different sized wings, stuff like that. Just trying to individualize the dragons a little bit more and give them, along with that, I think give them more kind of a personality, even that kind of, the personality kind of mirrors their rider. I think has also been a focus that I've heard in interviews that they want to do. If Damon can be kind of unpredictable and a bit of a loose cannon, so they want to make his dragon a bit like that as well, a bit kind of moody and a bit unpredictable. So I think that's also going to be a focus.
Yeah. I really like that. And I think that's like, just from what we've got of the character of Damon so far, I thought that was just such a fitting look to that dragon, if that was his, I guess you could say. I thought that was pretty cool.
I think the saddles make sense too.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm not sure if the saddles are in the books for Daenerys, like in the Song of Ice and Fire books, but obviously they didn't do it in the Game of Thrones show.
No.
So I can't remember if she uses saddles in the books, but either way, I think it makes sense for this show to have saddles.
And I think it's like, it makes sense because they, it's more of like a common thing that they're riding dragons, and it kind of reinforces that whole idea. Whereas Daenerys is like the only one. Is she like really the only one to ride dragons in all Westeros in Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, not until Jon. Yeah.
Right.
And basically, I mean, the thing with Daenerys too is that she's kind of learning the dragons because no one's had dragons for I think at that point of 100 150 years, so they haven't been in the world for that long, so she doesn't really know what she's doing. So it makes sense, doesn't have a saddle, doesn't really know what they eat. Even there's scenes where she's kind of unsure even what to feed them. But I think that having the saddles really drives home the fact that it's kind of just like a horse for them.
Exactly.
Even with Daenerys, there's a scene, the first time she rides a dragon in the show is, I think at the end of season 6, and it kind of just happens spur of the moment, like to save herself from the Sons of the Harpy.
Right.
So that it kind of just was necessitated, to save her life, rather than, this is something we do just to get around. Whereas, in this show, it's like just it's like a horse for them. It's nothing crazy or weird. It's just normal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. And then the next thing to me was just talking about like some of the cast and the performances in the episode. And I thought Matt Smith, I think I told you this, but he was really a standout for me. I think he's also the most, maybe him and Patty Considine were like two of the most well known to me, at least, of the cast. But yeah, he was.
Reese Ifans, I think, as well. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
who
Um,
plays Otto Hightower.
right. Okay, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, those were the three actors who probably had the longest, IMDb credit
right.
list. I would think Olivia Cook also has been in
Yep.
a couple Sound of Metal.
Yeah, love that movie. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
who she wasn't in this first episode, but she will be in the show.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, I really like Matt Smith. To me, that Damon character is the most interesting to me so far.
The scenes with Massaria, his like lover, I guess his partner. Um, those scenes where he's quite vulnerable and he clearly loves his brother and just wants to protect him. I mean, that's in the final scene. They have an exchange quite emotionally charged, and it's basically what he says. So he's clearly. I mean, I don't think he's insane or kind of a psychopath or anything,
Right,
but he has some villainous traits for sure.
right, yeah, yeah, and I just like the nuance. I like that. I like that we're gonna, hopefully see in the next few episodes, or, I mean, if the show goes on for a while, hopefully he'll be there for a while. But yeah, I just like to see where that character goes and how they kind of how he develops as the show goes on. So yeah, so that was something I really picked up on. And do we want to talk about that whole like the whole birthing scene? And just the whole dynamic there of King Viserys and his desire, or almost like, I guess, like his obsession with having a son, and then having to make that decision, right? To sacrifice
Yeah,
his wife for the chance that they can still rescue the son. What were your kind of thoughts on that scene?
yeah, it was definitely like the kind of emotional core, I think, of the episode. Really, it shows for the first half. I think it's about halfway through. For the first half of the episode, Viserys is quite like jovial and excited for this tourney and for his son. And in kind of the second half, he's the exact opposite. And the kind of line of demarcation there is that labor where he has to make a choice, and he obviously chooses to try to save his son. And yeah, I mean, it's incredibly visceral, that scene, and very poignant. But yeah, I mean, I think that was really well done, and I think it'll really set him up for the rest of the show, as that incident. I mean, it's clearly a very impactful moment in his life, and yeah, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I thought, and like you said, it was disturbing to watch, but I feel like they went like just far enough in what
Yeah,
they show. Like, they could have shown more probably. And but I really thought I got the point across, I guess. With what they showed. And yeah, I think Patty Constantine played that amazing. Like, just that decision, which is like an impossible decision. But I think like, and I've seen some people like kind of, I don't know, I really thought he was conflicted in that scene. I don't think it was I think he really did care about his wife, and that she was being sacrificed for the son. I don't think there was any kind of ill intention there. Or do you think that was there? Do you think he like really was conflicted in that? Like, was that
no,
a hard decision for him to make?
yeah, I think I've seen some discourse online that the um, the choice was one or the other. I'm pretty sure if you listen to the Maester Melos, he says, "Would you like to save um, like we can save one,
Right.
or we
Yeah.
can lose both."
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the option was either save the son and certainly his wife will die, or both will die. I don't think there was ever a choice to save his wife. That was my understanding of the scene, but
Okay.
I could be wrong on that.
Yeah. Yep. No. No. I think that was right. But I guess just the way that if he chooses to save the son, it's like for sure, definite that his
Yeah,
wife is gonna die. Right.
yeah,
So.
yeah. Which
Yeah.
obviously, I mean that clearly it was difficult for him and very conflicting,
Yeah.
and was not something that he chose lightly.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my interpretation of it. I think in the beginning of the episode though, I think there are some kind of traces that they're trying to set that up, that he's his obsession with having a son is maybe like kind of overtaking him a little bit, especially that
Hmm.
scene that he has with her when she's in the bath, in the bathtub there.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
seen it like they're kind of playing on that, but to me in that scene, that's not how it came off. So I really like that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. And I think you're exactly right. I think the way that I mean that's a defining moment for that character, obviously. Um, and I think we'll definitely see that kind of play out, and how that has impacted him going forward. And I think also, I mean, maybe one of the main impacts is that we already see it at the end of the episode, that he's placing even more value in Rhaenyra now, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have this son, he's not going to have the son, so he is, he does something that he wasn't willing to do before, and naming Rhaenyra his successor, right?
Yeah, I think for sure that scene changed his perspective on a male heir. Having this male heir, even just for a few hours, costs him his wife. So and perhaps she would have died anyway. But certainly by making that decision, most certainly she most certainly died because of the decision he made. So I think that probably changed his perspective on things and realized that what, it's not worth losing. This wasn't. He probably realized his obsession was unhealthy, obviously, and then that kind of changes his mind, and that leads to the end of the episode where he does name Rhaenyra his heir.
Yep. Yep. And I thought that was a great scene as well to end. Especially, we saw the little glimpse of Rickon Stark bending the knee at the in the last scene there. I guess we see basically the head of every house, right? Um,
Yeah, you get the Hightower, Stark,
yeah.
Baratheon, bunch of the Valerion, bunch of the big houses.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice scene. I like that. And yeah, I thought that was a cool way to end it. And Viserys also looks very like proud in that moment too, of having Rhaenyra, and then they kind of they have her kind of look at him on the throne. So that I thought that was kind of brought it all full circle there, towards the end of the
Hmm.
episode. All right, so what else? The jousting scene. I guess you brought that up earlier. I thought that was a really cool scene. Like you said, they had those scenes in Game of Thrones, and you thought this was done better than some of those scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it. Obviously, the budget was higher.
Okay.
I just thought it was more entertaining. Like, I thought it was very
Yeah.
kind of fast paced and just really well choreographed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I thought it looked really good. It was. And I found that really interesting that they had Damon lose the tournament in the end. I really thought that they were setting that up, almost kind of like a cliche thing of like showing, oh, he's this great warrior, and he's I guess the royal family, so no one's gonna defeat him or no one's gonna touch him. But then in the end, he actually does lose. And that's Martell? Is that um,
Nope,
one
that's
of those?
Kristen Cole.
Oh, so what house is he from?
Cole. It's
Oh, oh,
they House Cole. Yeah, they Rhaenyra kind of mentions that she's never heard of it. It's like a very small house. I don't think they have much land or anything, and um yeah, they're not an entirely consequential house. So he's basically in this position just because of his own talent, his own acumen for jousting and fighting.
okay. That makes some more sense. Okay, okay. Because I thought he was a Martell, and then they were gonna kind of maybe draw a connection there of like how they got involved. Um, because I guess they're mainly involved with the Lannisters in Game of Thrones, right? At that time,
Yeah,
is that okay?
yeah.
Yeah.
Christian Cole's from Dorne though, so
Okay.
that's
Okay. Yep.
he's kind of from that culture.
Okay. Yep. Yep. But yeah, I just really like that. I like the way that they played that out. That Damon loses actually, and it looks like then they're kind of setting up that Kristen Cole is then trying to get or trying to go with Rhaenyra, right? Is that what they're kind of setting up there in that little scene that they have with each other?
Yeah, clearly there's some connection there for sure, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. So that was good. And so, of course, the one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about was this secret that is passed down. I think Viserys's words are, "We pass it down from every king to heir." About
Yep.
the winter that is coming, and basically the secret that they pass down of how to combat it, I guess. So the way I picked up on this is that they intentionally left out, right? Like what the actual secret is, because Viserys doesn't actually tell her what it is in the episode. Is that right, or did I miss it, or what did you take from
Well,
that?
he says the long night to come
Okay.
from winter, like something. It was something like winter winds or something like that, or something like that, like from the north. Um,
Right.
so I think clearly he doesn't really know what it is, but he knows that there is a threat in the north
Oh, okay. Okay.
because they talk about how it would be the end of man. The song or the dream of Ice and Fire, the song of Ice and Fire,
Right.
and that the only way that this can be defeated is with a Targaryen on the throne, and presumably with dragons, and kind of a united Westeros. So I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it is very much in reference to, the Long Night, the White Walkers, the Night King,
Okay. See, I thought what they were maybe
and this,
playing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, and this came directly from George Martin.
Hmm.
He wanted this canonized, or to be canon,
Okay.
uh, because it could potentially come up in his next few books. I think is
Ah.
kind of the hint what he was hinting at if they ever come up.
Right. Of course. We may get another spin-off before the next
Very possible.
or
Yeah.
maybe a few. Okay, because I see what I thought they might have been hinting at is like the dragon glass or something, and like that the Targaryens knew about the dragon glass and how it was like effective on the White Walkers or something. I thought that was maybe what they were playing on there, and that I just that I missed that. But is that something that they know, the Targaryens, at this point, or something
Well,
that's
yeah,
relevant,
like
or
the White Walkers and kind of Army of the Dead and everything.
and like in Game of Thrones, it's that huge moment when they use that the dragon glass, right? As like a way to kill the White Walkers.
Yeah. I mean, I think this scene, what it was trying to kind of intimate is that the Targaryens did know about this threat, at least
Okay.
vaguely.
Okay.
Whether they knew about exactly what was the kind of kryptonite of White Walkers, I don't know if they know it's dragon glass. But what's
Okay.
clear is that each king, starting with Aegon, the first Targaryen king of Westeros, knew about this threat, but they didn't know when it was going to happen. They didn't know how kind of immediate it was. But the idea is that every king and then subsequently the heir did know there was a kind of a ominous, kind of mystical threat to the north.
Okay. See,
Which is new. That's new, by the way. That's kind of the whole point, is that it is new. Like,
okay.
Martin's never really talked about that. It was, he's never hinted that anyone knew about it. Really,
Oh,
like it was all. There was a thing called the Long Night that happened 1,000 years ago, or whatever, or thousands of years ago. That is essentially what happened in Game of Thrones, where the Night King leads an army to try to go south. And in that case, after that happened, they defeated them. Like the humans and the children of the forest, the first men and the children of the forest defeat the army of the dead. No, they don't kill the Night King, but they kind of stave him off. And then basically this Lord of Winterfell, well, I guess he was king of the north at the time, builds the wall to keep the army of the dead out
right.
for good. And then obviously kind of mixes in different magical spells and everything with the children of the forest to ensure that the army of the dead and the White Walkers and the Night King can't get through.
Right.
So that happened. And so people have heard of that. But at this point, for a lot of people in the world, it's probably just, a fairy tale.
Okay. Okay. See, and I don't know if I was like the biggest fan of like, and I don't know how much it's gonna play in with the rest of this season, and maybe you do know, and like don't maybe spoil if it's from the material that you've looked into and stuff. But I'm not a huge fan of like winter is coming being like the trend of the show as well. I thought, it's fitting with the Starks and that in Game of Thrones, and it's kind of this ominous thing that's constantly in the background until later seasons, of course. But I don't know. I'm hoping that that's not like the same. They don't use the same device in this show. But yeah, that's just, that's kind of my thought after seeing this, but I don't think it's going to be. I just think that, like you said, maybe this is just kind of a reference that's thrown in there, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the music as well was something that I noticed. Of course, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he.
I think it's Ramin Djawadi.
Okay. Yeah, but of course, the composer of Game of Thrones is back, which is awesome. And I thought the music in this episode was great. However, I will say I was not a fan of the Game of Thrones theme that they used in the credits. I thought this was... I really would have liked to see something original put together for the credits of this episode.
Yeah.
But it was cool to hear the theme again. I know like a lot of people online I saw were like really happy to hear it again, but I don't know. I just thought it was like a little on the nose. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
I think
on
it's yeah. No, I agree.
Okay.
It was nice to hear it, but I think obviously I would like them to have mostly new music. I think it's possible that won't occur again. Like I'm not sure that it'll be the credit sequence again, but I don't know. But I think along those same lines, the opening sequence.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
The opening title sequence wasn't really anything. I don't know if that's going to stay because they had this kind of prologue. So maybe the prologue kind of took the spot of a more elongated title sequence. I don't know. I would like it if they had a longer title sequence, but
yeah.
It's not the be all end all really. Like Game of Thrones had such a great opening title sequence.
Oh yeah.
That
yeah.
The theme song was excellent, obviously, but also the visual of going through Westeros and Essos. Oh. So I think it's pretty difficult to top that. But I would like to see if they have something more. I don't know. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, and I have seen like some people saying that maybe just for the premiere. See, and this is something too. Like I saw people say maybe it's just the premiere, and then next episode we'll get like the full credits sequence. But I think you have a point there, and I think it maybe is just because of that prologue. Because otherwise, I don't see a reason why just the premiere wouldn't have it, and then the rest of it. Like, because this isn't a pilot, right? Like, this is
No.
they greenlit the season when they went into development for this, so it doesn't really make sense that because you see that with pilots of TV shows all the time. They don't have the credits that they have later in the season and later episodes. So yeah, I don't quite understand that why HBO wouldn't want them to have a credits sequence in the first episode. But yeah, I would like to see one though. I think that'd be really cool. I think they could do some really cool stuff, with dragons and I don't know, something, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think I had seen something on the subreddit, someone talking about like if they did it, the opening theme was like going through the family tree kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that a lot.
Because the show is very much about their kind of lineage. So that would be interesting. And even in the first episode, they mention Aegon the Conqueror. They mention Maegor the Cruel, another past king. Jaehaerys is in the first scene. So in the first episode alone, they have three of the first, four kings of Westeros mentioned or shown in the episode. Because Viserys is the fifth king of Westeros, for like as a Targaryen king. So they show the other four, or sorry, three of the other four. So they're clearly very much they're very much going to show a lot of that history. So I think that would make sense.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I'd like that a lot. And it'd be fitting. Like Game of Thrones it really does encompass a lot of, by showing kind of Westeros and going through those areas and stuff. I thought that was really cool. But I think for this show it would be more fitting maybe to have like a family tree type deal, or something like that. Yeah, I'd be totally down for that. Yeah. Okay, so then my another criticism that I had, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this if you noticed this, was I thought the episode felt like a little too cutty. And I don't know how else to really say it, but that's what I kind of got an impression of. I felt like we could have lingered in some scenes here for a little longer than they did in the episode. The one specific one that came to mind right away was Alicent Hightower visiting Viserys. In that one scene, I felt like the scene just began, and then they kind of cut away, and we didn't see much of that. So I would have liked a little bit more of that. And then the one other scene I would have liked more of was Rhaenyra talking to her mom in the bath. And it's like, and she says like, "Oh, you smell like dragon," or something like that when they talk. And knowing what happens in the rest of the episode and the mom dying, I just would have liked to see that relationship play out a little bit more. And maybe we might see more of that. I'm not sure. But as of right now, I don't know. I would have liked to see more from those two scenes in particular. But what did you think of that? Did you notice that at all?
Yeah, a lot of the scenes definitely felt quicker. Yeah, especially the Rhaenyra and her mother scene. I think they were trying to just fit a lot of stuff in. Maybe I'm not sure if that'll be, a continued theme with the show, having these kind of quicker scenes. I think the scene with Alicent and the King Viserys, I think that one, if anything, made sense to be a bit shorter because it's kind of supposed to be awkward, and it's not. There's really, the whole point is kind of there's nothing for them to talk about. She's 13, 14. He's like 40. They really have nothing in common. And not, on top of that, he's also grieving. So he's not in the most talkative mood. So I think that makes sense to be a little bit more brief. But yeah, I think a lot of the other scenes, even some of the small council scenes, felt a little bit short. But specifically that Rhaenyra scene with her mother did feel a little bit abbreviated. But like I said, I think maybe that's just a product of the pilot. And they want to get, or not the pilot, but the first episode, and then they want to get a lot of different things in. They want to get a lot of different characters in, a lot of different, different moments to kind of illustrate different characters. So that it may have just been a product of that. But yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, like The only scene that was really longer was basically the birth scene that was cut with the jousting scene. That was like every other scene was felt like a little bit more brief than, in comparison, a lot of Game of Thrones scenes.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think it was what, an hour and 6 minutes runtime.
Hour, 6 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And obviously, if any of these scenes were much longer, you'd probably be approaching hour 15, hour 20. And that's obviously they wouldn't do that for a premiere episode. But like what's some of the longest Game of Thrones episodes? I can't remember.
Season 8,
Right?
like
Yeah, of course.
the
Yeah, season 8.
last
Yeah,
couple episodes,
yeah.
last few episodes are all well over an hour.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But before that, I mean, before season 8, I think the longest episode was probably hour 10, maybe.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So maybe this already was pretty long actually um for what they're kind of used to. Yeah. So I can see that, and I think you're right. I think they're just trying to fit as much kind of as they can in this episode. But I just would have liked to see more of that. And like I said, maybe I'm speaking kind of too soon here. Maybe we might see more of like flashbacks, I guess, like with Rhaenyra and her mom. I'm not sure, but I would have liked to see that relationship a little bit more play out. But that's about that's about it for my like kind of criticisms or like kind of the things I picked up on. Was there anything else that we didn't touch on yet that you wanted to discuss?
No, I don't think so. I think we basically hit everything.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's just end off then. Looking forward to the next episode. I did not watch the teaser. I think they put out a teaser, or like a, I don't know what
Yep.
they call it, like next on or whatever. I didn't watch that. But I just from what I've seen, of course, I know that Emma Darcy, Olivia Cook, like I know for sure those two are in it, and I know some other actors are in it that are older than the cast we have now. Just a quick IMDb look, that they're playing older versions. So that's obviously something I'm looking forward to next episode and seeing. Hopefully both those actresses, Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook, and I'm assuming we're gonna get a bit of a time jump at least for half of the episode, in showing kind of like years ahead, and maybe that that Daemon and Rhaenyra kind of competition for that succession is maybe a little bit more developed, I guess, or it's more serious than it is when we leave off this episode. So those are just kind of my thoughts going in. Again, I don't know really any of the plot. I don't think we actually have a synopsis either for the episode yet. I think it is called The Rogue Prince. But that's all I got. But what are you looking forward to, or did you watch the teaser at all?
Yeah, the teaser. It's basically, I think it's called the weeks ahead. So it's kind of
Okay.
a teaser for the next few weeks. But some of the content will be in the next episode. They also released stills, like some photographs from that episode. So we get a picture of Otto and his daughter Alicent, the Hand of the King Otto and his daughter Alicent. Picture of them, like kind of embracing. Picture of Daemon with a dragon egg.
Ooh.
So that's pretty interesting.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to remember the other ones. I think there's another still of like Rhaenyra in. I'm not sure. I think she might just be kind of outstanding alone. Like it's not really clear what the scene is. There's a still with Corlys Valerion, who's on the small council, and his wife Rhaenys, who is King Viserys's cousin.
Yeah.
There's still of them, the two of them, standing outside somewhere. Like all this stuff is very, not clear what's happening. But yeah, so I think we'll get a healthy dose of all those characters, obviously, and yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what how they'll go with this next episode, and Damon at the end of the episode, he's sent away back to his wife. He is married,
Right.
even though he doesn't act like it, obviously,
Yeah.
but he is married, and so he's being sent back to the Vale to be with his wife. And so we'll see what happens there, how long that sticks. I can't imagine very long, but
And
then obviously.
And what do you think about the older actors? Are we going to see them in the next episode?
I'm not sure. I've heard conflicting things. I've heard, but the prevailing thing I've heard is that it's more like, rather than they're doing half an episode with the older versions. And by the way, I think the only older versions are going to be Rhaenyra and Alicent. I'm pretty sure everybody else is playing their older selves. Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be some new characters in the older timeline, but I don't think they'll have been characters that were in the original timeline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
So I think they're the only two who are playing older versions. Every other actor is either not in the first timeline, not in the second timeline, or they're playing the same character that they are in both. Anyway, yeah. So I think what I've heard is that it'll be like halfway through the season where they switch, rather than half an episode.
Okay. Okay.
Because I wasn't, I didn't know that necessarily prior, or at least I hadn't heard that. It's not. I don't know if it's confirmed.
Right.
Might be. I'm not sure. But I was a bit surprised not to see Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook in that first episode, at least in some capacity.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that'll be a cool change. I mean, I like the two actresses who are playing the younger versions as well. So it'll be unfortunate to see them, not getting to play those characters. But yeah, I mean, obviously Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook. There'll be older versions. Clearly, these older characters will probably have a lot more nuance to them. Right now we're getting these two characters. Alicent is very much a Sansa Stark type character, very timid, very naive, and very kind of soft spoken and sweet. Then Rhaenyra is more like kind of an Arya, more kind of rejecting the notions of her traditional like femininity in this kind of Westerosi time, and she prefers to ride her dragon. She doesn't really want to be a wife or a mother.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a lot more nuance with those characters, kind of almost breaking from the two archetypes that they've kind of fit into so far. When they're older, so I think that's definitely a positive. I think the characters will become a lot more have a lot more depth.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So we should be back. Hopefully, probably not as long from the episode, right? Hopefully, like next day type of deal. And we'll kind of share our thoughts on that episode. We'll go from there on this one. But it's a 10-episode first season. So it's going to be, I guess the same as Game of Thrones, and we have a lot more to go. So we'll have to see where they go with this one, and really looking forward to next episode. So thank you for joining me today, Greg.
Of course, my pleasure.
For this one, and like I said, we'll see you then next week for House of the Dragon episode 2.